Skye Squad, we are back in the building and we got to talk about some news that's popping off today. Carlos King sat down with Candiace Dillard-Bassett from the Real Housewives of Potomac and discussed all things Potomac, but also all things Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Season 3, filmed in Thailand this past July. That's going to be airing on Peacock very, very soon. Well, how soon? We don't yet necessarily know, but what we do know is that Marisol Patton and Alexia from the Real Housewives of Miami have been spotted filming their Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Season 3 confessionals. So we could definitely think that we could be seeing this sometime soon in the next couple of months. But before all of that breaks off, we got to talk about everything that Candiace spoke about with Carlos King. Now, this was definitely one of the longer podcasts on his podcast. As you guys know, he comes out with episodes usually on Wednesdays and Fridays. And this one was really, really juicy. So they did start off talking about how Candiace manifested her way onto the Real Housewives of Potomac after seeing the first two seasons. They talk about her first season on the show and how she became a lightning rod on the show and how she almost didn't know if she was coming back for the season following, but ultimately she did. So then they also talked about, of course, the big altercation that she had with Monique Samuels, who is also a star on Carlos King produced Love and Marriage DC at this point. And she talks about her not being over the revisionist history of those who participated in the altercation, most likely referring to Monique. She said that she spoke to one of the senior vice presidents, Lorraine, who championed her during that time frame that she was going through the post-incident on the Real Housewives of Potomac during season 5, and how Lorraine, the SVP, allegedly spoke out against the revisionist history of the other cast members, most likely referring to, yet again, Monique, and the edited version of the fight. So it was interesting to me that she said the edited version. And of course, yes, everything on TV is edited. So it's interesting to me to see what her idea of the altercation actually is. And again, listen to the podcast, guys, because Candiace does delve deep into this briefly. So Carlos asked if there is a world where she's able to forgive Monique or at least be friends. Candiace says that she has forgiven Monique for herself, and she thinks it's impossible, though, to move forward with someone who, quote, is still talking about it and basically still insulting her from her perspective. She says that she's not still talking about something that is a non-factor in her life, and you can't rekindle something with someone who isn't there. These are the words of Candiace Dillard-Bassett. Now, with regards to the Real Housewives of Potomac premiering in just a few days, we did get into the Chris versus Gizelle of it all. And the question comes up, is Chris attracted to Gizelle? Candiace says, well, you will have to ask Chris that. She says, I don't think so. And then she referred back to an event at Karen's house from a previous season where someone asked the group if there was someone else in this group who they would be with, who would it be? And of course, Chris said Gizelle. Now, according to Candiace, Chris and Gizelle often flirt with each other, but Chris doesn't want Gizelle. This is what Candiace claims. She says that he doesn't want Gizelle's 50-year-old poontang. So Gizelle, according to Candiace, also has a history and a reputation of being allegedly fast and loose in her past. So she sees Gizelle's flirting with Chris and she says, po thang, and that you can't ask for something more from someone who can only give a little more than half. She also says Gizelle is a beautiful woman, but a shell is just a shell. And a shell often has funky insides. So then conversation turned to the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip for season 3 in Thailand. So it seemed like buddies from each cast were invited, but now we know that that's not necessarily the case because Whitney and Heather Rose from the Real Housewives of Potomac, who were also on the trip, aren't necessarily in the best of places either. So apparently everyone else was also confused about Gizelle and Candiace going on the trip, even Candiace herself, because she thought that if anybody, she thought that it would be Gizelle and Karen going out on something like that, since according to Candiace, that's who the network pushes out forward when it's time for promotion. And we've often talked about that on this channel, that Gizelle and Karen are typically the faces of the franchise because they are the two long-standing OGs who have typically been the anchor of most of the, I would say, drama consistently throughout the seasons. You know, Gizelle and Karen going back and forth with each other is as epic as Kim and Nene. So there's no other duo that I can think of that may be as iconic as Nene and Kim, or Nene and a Sheree, as I would say Gizelle and Karen. But anyway, Candiace says that it was 10 days of unadulterated HE double hockey sticks. She was ready to go. They wore her out. She says she is not the type of person who doesn't talk when she doesn't need to talk. And she can't really figure out if those ladies were fighting for camera time or not, but there was so much talking that needed to happen amongst the group. And she was surprised that she was chosen at all. And so Carlos asked, well, how did things go with Porsha? Because we know that Porsha and, you know, Candiace have said some things about each other in the media over the course of time, particularly when it related to the altercation between Candiace and Monique, because Porsha and Monique are friends as well. Candiace says, you will be surprised in good ways and bad ways. It was an interesting time with Porsha. She is something else, but so am I. So when asked who did she get into it with the most besides Gizelle, she says probably Porsha, but it was Gizelle that she battled with the most. And if she had to say who she battled with next the most, it would be Porsha. She does say that it ebbed and flowed and it was 10 days, but it felt like 10 months. It was a lot of evolution that took place. She also says that Leah from the Real Housewives of New York is her girl. Leah and the Snow Bunnies, who she is referring to as Heather and Whitney, she says they were her faves, and they played a really fun game where she got to express her thoughts on everyone, and some people were happy and some were not. And according to Candiace, things did not end well for her and Gizelle on the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Season 3. So what can we expect from this season of Potomac? Candiace says this season is probably one of their best seasons because everyone gave something. She loves when they get to the end and nothing has spilled into the media, unlike Atlanta, which she feels like ruins the viewer experience. She says she was actually on a flight when she got a text message from her manager that she allegedly had gotten into a fight with Mia. She wasn't even there at the time. It was actually Mia versus Wendy. And she says, but even with that situation, you will have to pay attention to exactly what happened to really understand why the incident took place. She says this season, everyone gave something special. The dynamic shifted so quickly. This was the fastest that they have moved as a group. She says that Jacqueline, who is Mia's friend, came in there and pulled their wigs off. She was doing three much, not too much, but three much. And you're not even going to be able to keep up. She says you have to stay on your toes, keep your notes. We're friends one moment, we're not the next, we're cussing, and then the next moment we're all in bed together. You know, Carlos asked, did they come into this season or are they on this show at this point thinking that they need to bring out their best work for the season? She says they don't all get together to have those conversations, but they have had those conversations amongst smaller groups of themselves. And she says she loves that they protect the way they carry themselves, that they are intelligent enough to know when it's time to clock in, and then to also fall back so that there isn't a whole bunch of everyone fighting on the screen at the same time. She says that also gives the audio people a break and a chance to really hear what each woman is saying, unlike what she says happened on Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip, where everyone was just screaming at the top of their lungs. She says that they are all incredibly intelligent, savvy, smart women who know how to maneuver. And there are a lot of unspoken things that fall into place in the heat of the moment, and everyone knows how to police themselves. At the end of the episode, they do end up giving Atlanta a lot of love. But listen, as much as I love my Atlanta, I'm also loving my Potomac. So I cannot wait to see what these ladies bring. I am sure it's going to be an epic season. Let me know your thoughts on this interview. Make sure you guys check out the interview link in the description down below in this video. It's also on Carlos King's Instagram page. Like I said, there are literally interviews every Wednesday and Friday just about with reality TV stars, or he's recapping episodes of some of our favorite reality TV shows. So be sure to check those out. With that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video.